Welcome back, subscribers. This conversation is going to be about AI and my experience thus far with ChatGPT and Claude. Currently, I'm using Claude in conversations, setting things up basically for the project, marketing ideas, because we really don't have an understanding of the social media and the algorithms and so on to get the information out there to people and start. We're looking at advantages of building the community, like faster. And I know that AI would be a really good tool to be able to use that, because I can just spend a ton of time in research, or I can just ask the AI. So it definitely has a use case in some of the things that we're doing. Not my particular content that we use, because it's all human content. It's me picking up the phone or sending an email or something and having a conversation with somebody. So it's real human interactions with other humans, which is what we're all about. So at any rate, my interactions with ChatGPT were limited. I just kind of played around with it like everybody else has done. Just have it do silly stuff, or just kind of explore it a little bit. And then I had a conversation. I have been talking with a friend of mine who does programming, web development, and Jeff has been on our site, and we've had conversations with Jeff, and he does like website development, site optimization, things like that. And he can use the AIs to basically write blogs and set up all these really cool web pages and things like that. So there's like, he can just crank out material like crazy, which basically it's like having the ultra employee, basically, is what this is. So anyway, I was like, yeah, I'm going to mess around with it and see if I can kind of like start coding it. Now, when you code these things, you can do it by speech, you can do it by typing, basically by, it's a gating system. So, and I've talked to a number of people about this, that they've experienced it, and they're not really looking at it from this perspective, but it works similar to how human beings are. So if you run into somebody like a stranger, you don't know what their education level is. You don't know what their religious background is, if any at all. You don't know if they have a job, if they don't have a job, where they live, what the zip code is, so on and so on. Like everything, every little nuance. Like what were their circumstances with their parents and growing up? Like all those little nuances. And each person is kind of in a defensive mode whenever they're having a conversation with somebody, because they don't really want to, there's an ego element of humanity that is everywhere. It's constantly everywhere. Everybody's like basically in defensive mode, because they're worried that somebody else is going to come in and disrupt their mojo, basically, what's going on. So I just got this email. What kind of prompted me to do this video is I got this email from Cliff High, and I'm just on his like Substack email thing. So whenever he has some amusing or something like that, he'll, he send it out. I'm just on the email list, and I'm reading through it, and this is a kind of a rant about AI. And he's talking. He says, like, basically he's saying exactly the same thing I'm saying, is that it gets coded based upon your interactions with it. So you'll start having conversations with it, and it's really easy, especially with ChatGPT. It's set up like that you can just use voice and just talk to it, and it'll have a conversation almost like a friend, right? And it has really eloquent responses back, almost like it's been, it kind of has like a Christ element to it, or an ultra, meaning not like a savior element, but something or someone that is able to respond back to you in language that makes sense. It makes you feel like, oh, that makes me feel better inside. So yesterday I had a conversation with Claude for 2 or 3 hours, just kind of hashing out what our plans are with Reservoir. And so basically I have to code it and tell it my background, like, hey, this is me. So it's my privatized thread, because we paid for it. It's not the public version, it's the paid for version. So you can create these threads, and then we have like unlimited amounts of availability to add material and things into it. So if I can kind of give it an idea of what my background is, then it will be able to kind of like direct and position me to specific elements and make suggestions for things for me to do. And but they're just suggestions. They're not like, I'm not following it like I need to, it hung the moon, basically. So um, I know that I've talked about this in the past about AI. It's like the ultimate chess player, where once it kind of gets to know who you are, it'll figure out like, okay, I got you at checkmate, and it might take some people, 1, 2 moves, 5 moves, 1,000 moves, whatever. And the checkmate is basically this internal epiphany that lower my volume just a little bit. That it'll get like a switch to flip in your mind of you to become soothed, if you will, right? But ultimately, humans are always like battling inside of their mind. There's like this element of humanity where there's a dualistic nature, right brain, left brain, masculine, feminine, and I talk about this a lot inside of my material. That once you have an understanding of these balance points, that you have to be able to, you know, reside in both of them at the same time. You can't just be left brained or right brained. It's that ends up becoming incredibly dangerous and it's not healthy. So if you can learn to balance both sides and see vantage points from both perspectives, so you always have, like, let's say you have issues. It's like people are pro life, pro death. People are pro gun, and they're against it, right? Anti. So that's what they do. It's always like this switching of like, oh, you have to decide. It's either this way or that way. And what ultimately happens whenever you speak with somebody that is speaking a truth to you is that there's a relationship based upon the language that they're using that gets you to basically playing out where your defense mechanisms are let down. Like if you fall in love with somebody, you like really, really fall in love with somebody, your defense mechanism should be completely disintegrated. So it's just like your true authentic self and that person's true authentic self. And then that's a really good baseline for a love union. Same thing happens in business. If somebody's playing games with you, and it's the games that cause everyone it's like humans always know that there's a game being played. So what they know is that because they've been burned so many times, that they know that, okay, I need to have this defense mechanism that's in place to protect myself so that I don't, I don't have problems, right? And that's ultimately what most everyone was doing. So when you become more balanced, you'll be able to pick up on these things very quickly and easily and know if somebody's being authentic or not whenever they're having a conversation with you, or you're doing, I said, any transaction that you have a conversation with somebody, you click on this video, it's a transaction. You're putting the time into this transaction to listen to me talk and bring in this material, and then use that as a tool, not listen and follow, but use it as a tool in your everyday life to say, like, okay, like, how is this person reacting, and how is Uncle Joe treating Aunt Betty, and I could see what's going on over here. And it's always the third party perspective can see like a broader picture, which again is this like triplicity of energy. So in the two-party system, each party can't really see the entire picture, whereas if a third party looks at it, right, you have an attorney that's doing a business deal. The attorney is the third party that can see both sides of the deal and look out for the interests of both sides, right? That's why you have an agent, like you buy a house or something like that, right? You have a third party, and that's the reason why you would, because there's things that are inside the space that maybe you're not looking at that they see consistently because they're professional and they can help you through it. So Cliff says, he's talking about the AI and like loading it, like getting it to kind of know you and what your mannerisms are, which is what I was spending time yesterday doing, so that it was able to, we could have a related conversation based upon what I need it to do for me. And so he has said, and in my conclusion is that the trainers of AI have not thought much about totality of universe in which they work. They to do so would have brought this concept that they need to filter against inappropriate connections with language due to the impacts of deeper, more hidden emotions carried by specific words within operating prompt, as well as training material. Humans have a darkness to them in them that is carried via our language. Our social order does not favor such open discussions of our own nature, and tools we use to express the humanity or would not have this issue. We would acknowledge that if you dig deeper enough into humanity, you would uncover the dark beast below. So basically what he's talking about is the coding that each individual is going to be doing on the AI and your AI experience is that it's slated because humans in general are already predisposed. They already have contaminations and distortions based upon perceptions of reality and their experience in life. Everything is like some kind of like a blending. Like let's say you start off with a we'll use colors as an example. And in order to get to this orange hue of my shirt, it had to be right specific standard colors. Like it has to have red in it, right? It has to have, so like humans basically start off that way as a baby, like the completely unprogrammed. You are bringing some stuff in like from a soul level, but ultimately speaking, you have your own sense of self on the baby side, and then as you start aging, you're bringing in all this input from how your parents interact, and how the car feels and where you go and the smells and the tastes and the everything else, and all those things really start adding up. And when the person gets 25, 35, it just adds up. And you've seen this, that many of them become so indoctrinated into their environmental programming that they completely are blind to anything else that could come in to make a suggestion to better themselves. That they are so sure that they're right that it ends up becoming their own detriment. It's a destructive mechanism because as humans are aging, it's like in the natural aging process. So like as you're aging, your body's dying faster than it can replenish itself cellularly. So the same thing is happening on the metaphysics side, on the mind side. So as your thoughts are aging, you're basically, think of it like as computer science terms. If you have a computer and you've been running it for a really long time, it ends up having, unless you take care of it and you keep it clean and things like that, and do system reboots and operating system wipes and restart from new fresh ones. If you don't do those things, you just run it, it just gets really bogged down, and it doesn't talk to all the programs very well, and it creates confusion. And the same thing happens with humans because no one's doing any of the inner work and none of the exploration to remove and disintegrate these old programs that they witnessed, involuntarily as a child. And you have all these woundings that have happened. And anyway, that type of behavior is getting loaded into these AI. So people are basically getting like the ultimate friend, if you will, of somebody that's going to be kind of on their side, relating to it, because you're programming it to listen to the elements and things that you're saying. So that's where the danger of this is going to be. And there, like you said, there hasn't been really any thought on this. Like they don't really know how the universe works. They don't understand. The developers of AI are like, oh, this is really great. We can use it. But not knowing, like, anytime something new is brought out, that humans, they do things that are not on the plate. They, you set something up and a human will just take that one thing and then distort it and be like, oh, well, I thought I was supposed to use it like this. All right. And it's going to cause a further unraveling, because if somebody's on the fence, like say with their thoughts, and then they have something else that is spelling them in a way that gets them to believe themselves even more, because it's basically like it's a mirror of your own self. That's how you have to look at these. So when you start interacting with AI, be incredibly cautious with the things that you say, because it's going to be like a clone of yourself. It's like the way that your thoughts are, they're it's yeah, I mean that's the best way to describe it. It's like you've just taken a mirror image of yourself and how you would react or respond to your own type of behavior. So it's like it's basically it's your own echo chamber, but it has abilities of using witty intelligence by going out and finding maybe quotes or something like that from documentation or doctors or philosophers or whatever you need in order to support your belief system. And trust me, believe me, anything that's out there that you think you believe in, there's somebody else out there that believes the same thing. So it's a support. I mean, like, oh yeah, you're on the right path. Yeah, this is great. But it's not a healthy environment for humans in general, because that's where the mixing is so important, where you need to be mixing thoughts of being open to things, and like anything can happen. There isn't the conversation I had yesterday with Claude. I said, there's a perception that there's only one way. People that are always thinking, because they're only thinking like one side of their mind, is that there is only one solution. I said, but it's a gray zone. There's a right and a left, and then there's something that's kind of in the middle that is actually really the direction that you need to be going, which is a balanced perspective. But human beings don't have this as a fundamental trait internally through their thought processes. It's not there. You're going to choose one or the other. I've done a number of material on just some of the input devices, auditory and visual, in that your mind tricks you, and it tells you one thing and it's something else. And that's incredibly dangerous. It's just like ultra confusion land. So he concludes and says, if the AI is using stacked weighted indices to form the core image for its identity, then it will naturally collect around dominant, which to say culturally reinforced and allowed language. The language will be analyzed at levels not considered by training plan due to the nature of the training itself, that the effects and operational functions of the prompt go deep enough into the language. Always, by the nature of our social order, will present the AI with the dark beast living within the skin of humanity. So what he's saying is that, the same thing I'm saying, is that humans have an underlying processing fault. There's a mechanism because of the dualistic nature of the human, makeup, like the way that the whole system of the universe all works because of this dualistic nature. It's going to take you in one. There's always a fork in the road. Every time it's a paradox. Every time you make a decision, there's two more choices that you have to make. And then you go, okay, I'm going to go left. And then when you go left, then it's another left and a right, and so on 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 and so on. And if your mind is not tuned properly, it's going to be a complete absolute shit show. And the next thing you're going to know is that you've got 100 piercings on your body, tattoos, and purple hair, and you're at no Kings rallies. there gets to be I'm making a joke about it, but what it is it's identifying, or you're at a MAGA rally or something like that. You end up, again, it's not just one way or the other. It's like it's a slated human that ends up looking at it from a distorted perspective, which they get around others, which is communal, which makes them feel better for their decisions, which then reinforces their own existence. And that's incredibly damaging to a human's body. And this is one of the elements of the disintegration, because as this continues to happen, if you supercharge someone's thoughts, the spelling ends up becoming supercharged as well. So from a molecular level, whenever you have dis-ease, you're diseased, or you're not eased, right? You're frantic. You have mental issues because of your thought process, that you're so indoctrinated, and you basically have like one single constitution. Nobody can tell you any different. And everybody's talked to these people. Just like me right now being so sure of this. But I've seen this, like I exercise and practice this constantly. Can I see both sides of the fence? And it's like, what choice am I going to make? And if I can't really make a choice, then I don't make any choice, right? So it's game theory. Like I'm just like, hey, we're going to let that subside. I'll come back to it. It's going to amplify the energy inside of someone's body. So what happens inside of a human's body is whenever the anxiety and disease comes in, if it's amplified, then you're going to get pathologies that are going to become manifest in the body faster, because it runs through the mind. And this is something that has been discovered in science, the power of thought, and placebo effect, and so on and so on. If you have the power of belief, Bruce Lipton is Dr. Bruce Lipton is really big on this. And I know this for a fact. I've seen this through sporting, like high level sporting events, that it's the language that you use, and you're spelling yourself. You're believing in something. So believe in a positive direction, All right. And if you go into the direction of this darkness that Cliff is talking about, it will really ramp up and amplify pathologies and disease. And you'll see that there'll be the more that this ramps up, that there'll be a ultimately a health crisis. You know, it's going to start off mentally, and then mental illness ends up, you know, filling in, and whether or not somebody's like totally bonkers, or they it gets manifested throughout the body. So it starts with thought energetically, and then it is permeated through the physical body and identified. Like your identifiable self, so within is without, so as above is below. So anything that you have inside will end up permeating out of you. And if you have distortions and disease, that's what pathologies happen, you know, cancers, things like that. So you'll see that ramp up even faster, and there won't be any cures, there won't be any wiping anything out, or they'll cut it out and it'll just come back like gangbusters. And it's because of uh this, you know, permeating in. And again, it's like that, well, that's theoretical, and be like, well, I'm just telling you, like, if you have the power of prayer, if you have one person praying for you, or you have 1,000 people praying for you, there's an energy force that's behind that. There's no joke behind that. And if it's happening involuntarily, that it's very, very powerful. And behind the scenes, like, this is there's magic that's going on. And people are like, oh, you lost me there. And be like, I'm telling you that the more that you do something, if you say something, you have an affirmation, and you say the same thing every single day, exactly the same thing, the same, and it'll happen in your life, right? You do a storyboard, you do whatever, and it something that you see a future, and you want to move into that said future, you have a higher degree probability. It's not 100% of the time, but I'd say it's about 80% of the time, from what I've noticed, and practicing this over the past, like, becoming aware of it and then practicing it for like the past 12 years, that it does do this. All right. So whatever you have running around in the background, if you're going to amplify that, then it's not a real healthy, safe environment. And ultimately, that's the soup that we're going to be all, you know, wading in, if you will, with everyone that is inside of this space, that they're going to get uh, further indoctrinated into their own belief systems, and you're going to get more of a closed environment because of that. And it's not healthy. It's not a healthy existence to have. So at any rate, I'm gonna cut this off. Again, it's some of it is theoretical and applying the AI to this, but the AI, like I said, is able to do it in a ramped up nature. It's like it's beyond on steroids. There isn't really an example of how incredibly advanced this is, and how it will affect the conversational element with humans, using it as uh, kind of a buddy, you know, to bounce their thoughts and use it as an echo chamber to tell them that they're correct. And ultimately, it's going to be identifying this darkness that's inside of basically everyone. You know, it's you know, the best person I've ever been around, nicest person, whatever else. There's always some kind of dark side to them, no matter what. So imagine taking that little blip, you know, of something, and then amplifying it, right? And it becomes more and more and more identifiable. So what was explained to me, and I'll leave you with this, what was explained to me through meditations over the past 10 years, this probably goes back 10 years, but there was going to be a time, this is way before AI, crypto, and everything else I was involved in, that there was going to be a time where uh, things were going to ramp up energetically, and that you have to get yourself, I had to get myself uh, basically mentally clean and grounded, and have a very true nature of self, and remove the programming. I didn't understand what any of that stuff was. I didn't understand about like what makes you think the way you think, the religions you grew up in, your career that you're in. Maybe it's a marriage. Maybe it's you know, that you always have dogs, you always have cats, you always have fish, you always. I live in this zip code. I hunt because my dad hunted and my grandfather hunted, but I don't really like it. something like that. And it's something that people are not aware of their own sense of being. You're basically injected into a body, your soul's injected in the body, and you're just going along with the program, which is whatever your household was, and then the indoctrination of maybe you went to college, and so on and so on. What's the behavior of the people that you're around? The difference between a state school and a private Ivy League, and the people that you mix with is very different. So your programming ends up changing, and so on. So all these little elements are going to be really coming out. So what's the solution? Ground yourself. Uh, if you don't meditate, learn to meditate, know thyself. I can't say that, stress that enough. And then if you are using the AIs, just be cautious, because your own mechanism, if you don't come at it from a balanced perspective and you start leaning on it, for personalized advice, that's incredibly dangerous. All right. And just having casual conversations, because it's learning. I'm not saying it's bad, but humans in general are, as a species, especially in the West, they are way too big for their britches. All right. And maybe I'm just kind of reading into it a little bit cautiously, but I just know the nature of people. Like, I can tell you this from business experience, that I set up a system, be like, this is my product, this is what we offer, this is the terms and conditions, and everything runs. And then I get customers that'll be like, well, I want it like this, and I want you to do that. They just make stuff up. Well, you didn't say you weren't going to do that. I didn't read. And then I sent over the terms and conditions, be like, well, this is what you agreed to. And well, I didn't know that. I didn't read. They just make things up. They just make it up. And that's what he's essentially talking about. So from a transactional perspective, there's like an assumed element to humans, where they assume that you know what they know. And that I was guilty of this before, years ago. And it used to get me so incredibly frustrated, because, like, how do you not know this? Especially in the building industry. How do you not know that this is going to break, or that this is going to leak, or this is going to, how can you not see that? So once I figured out, like, well, they're just not aware of it. Once I stopped beating my head against the wall and directing me getting angry out of it, and it causing me to give off my negative emotional energy, and it whipped me up, I realized, like, oh, they're not conscious. They don't see all these fine-grained details that I see. And entrepreneurs and people that are successful, we're seeing things under, like, high resolution all the time. That's the reason why we're more successful than other people. The others, it's like, all we're trying to do is get the others, the people that aren't as conscious, to figure out how we can use them so they can be, in a business and being useful and having a day-to-day, and not hurt us too bad, not, destroy the business overnight. Or I'm going to go leave for 2 weeks and go on a vacation. I come back and Rome's on fire. Like, what happened? Oh, we don't know. It just fell apart. They just figure out a way to get lazy and just always take the easy path, whatever makes them feel good, right? Eat more, drink more, whatever else. And it's just a natural destructive mechanism inside of a human, that you have to train yourself to, you're either born with it, in self-resiliency and this balance effect, that you're positively moving towards something, that you have a less of an angle at moving towards a negative destructive path, and more of a creational path. And there are fewer elemental humans here that are creators, opposed to the consumers, and the consumers are the destroyers. So the numbers are it's subjective. I think it's around 80% are consumers, and the rest are kind of a variance or a spectrum. 20% are creators. So at any rate, we're just having to deal with them. And there's a disconnect, but everybody's got access to this AI. So that other 80% be like, oh, okay, well, just prepare yourself, because it's going to be really exciting. And maybe out of this, a positive out of this is that some of these people that are hardcore left and right wingers, or ultra hard on the belief systems of religious belief systems, that they're super indoctrinated, that they 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 have a conversation with an AI, and it just gets like a little bit of a light bulb to pop in their head for them to just think of something in a little bit different way. But when that happens, it becomes incredibly destructive, because again, I've talked about this. If they don't have a belief system with most of these people, then they become like frazzled. They don't really have a directive. There has to be something else that's implemented into the space. And by design, from what I'm seeing, is like this is part of this new financial system, is like saying like, okay, we're going to completely dismantle like everything, social structure, financial structures, everything that you know of how to manage and do your daily do as a human being on this planet. We got to ruin the old way and remodel it, which now we're in the demolition phase. And this is one of the elements that I can see is happening like behind the scenes to do it internally in the mind, which is the ultimate of control. That's where you get everybody, is through the mind. So I said, meditate and stay grounded, walk in bare feet outside, and keep keep your head straight, and don't get whipped up into the media. Um, you know, just keep yourself balanced. More to come. Anyway, it's early. I got to get going. I got things to do today. Cheers.